In a small, peaceful village, there lived an old woman who had already spent more than half her life. She no longer had a husband nor children by her side. Her life partner had passed away many years ago, leaving behind a void that seemed impossible to fill. She lived alone in a small house beneath an ancient banyan tree, facing solitude and the burdens of old age every day. Yet, what made everyone in the village respect and cherish her was her rare optimism. Although her life was far from easy, she always kept a gentle smile on her lips. Her face was deeply lined with wrinkles, but her eyes always shone with compassion and simple joy. Villagers often said that just by seeing her smile, their own hearts felt lighter, as if their worries were soothed. She never blamed fate, nor did she resent life. On the contrary, she chose to live peacefully, treasuring every small thing around her. Sitting under the banyan tree, she would often strike up conversations with passers-by, offering them simple but powerful words of encouragement. Though she lived alone, she never made others feel she was lonely, for the positive energy she radiated had become a shared joy for the entire village. Life in that small village was tied to hardship and constant worry. Most villagers were farmers, working the fields year-round, hands caked in mud, waiting for the right rains and sunshine to plant and harvest. A few others made a living as carpenters, traders in the market, or hired laborers. Despite their hard work, they struggled daily to survive. Harsh weather and poor soil meant crops were sometimes abundant, but often failed. In drought years, fields cracked, plants withered, and rice became scarce. At times, storms swept through, washing away months of labor overnight. Each harvest season brought renewed anxiety over food and survival. On top of economic hardship, the villagers also faced illness. Fevers, coughs, or sudden diseases often robbed families of their ability to work. When a member fell ill, the whole household was left exhausted, lacking both labor and money for treatment. This only deepened the uncertainty of life. Thus, in the eyes of many, sadness and worry were constant companions. They rarely glimpsed a bright future, for tomorrow always seemed an unknown full of hardship. Yet, they clung to their land, hoping for a better harvest or a kinder day. And in this fragile reality, the old woman's gentle smile and optimistic words became a warm flame, igniting hope for many. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight faded, Radha quietly came to the old woman's small house beneath the banyan tree. Her face was gaunt, her eyes swollen from days of weeping. Since her husband had left the village for the city to find work, her family had fallen into hardship. Months had passed without a single letter or coin sent home. In their shabby home, her young children grew pale from hunger, often surviving on thin porridge. The burden of survival weighed heavily on Radha's heart. Each night she lay awake, consumed by dark thoughts. She feared her husband might have failed to find work, or worse, had forgotten his wife and children at home. Each time such thoughts came, tears streamed down her face. The bleak future robbed her of faith in life. With no one to confide in, Radha decided to seek the old woman, known for her kindness and comforting advice. The moment she saw her, Radha broke down like a child, pouring out her long-hidden sorrows. "I don't know what to do. I'm afraid everything will only get worse. My mind is filled with only bad thoughts, and my heart feels unbearably heavy," Radha sobbed. The old woman sat quietly, her eyes glowing with empathy. When Radha had finished, she smiled gently, held Radha's hand, and softly asked, "And what do you think will happen?" The simple question left Radha stunned, for her mind had only ever imagined despair. She had never dared to think of something good. In that moment, Radha realized it was her negative thoughts that had deepened her hopelessness. The old woman's warm smile and kind eyes became her anchor, giving her a glimpse of hope that perhaps life hadn't closed every door. Gently squeezing Radha's hand, the old woman began to tell a simple but meaningful story. "Long ago," she said slowly, "there was a poor man with nothing in his hands. He had no land, no money, no family. In despair, he sat by the riverbank, weeping. To him, life was empty, with nothing left to hope for." She paused, then continued. An old woman passing by asked, "Why are you crying?" The man replied, "Because I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?" The old woman smiled kindly. "You are mistaken. You have the clear river, the green trees, the sun's warmth, and the wide sky above. The that day, he realized he wasn't completely empty-handed. Though life was poor, there were still things worth gratitude. His soul grew lighter, and from then on, he lived peacefully, treasuring each moment. Looking at Radha, the old woman smiled. You see, life doesn't change by magic, but by how we think. When the mind is filled with worry, everything becomes heavy. But with positive thoughts, the heart grows lighter and strong enough to endure the storm. Her words carved deeply into Radha's heart. For the first time in months, she could take a deep breath without feeling suffocated. The darkness in her soul began to fade, making room for a spark of hope. After that talk, Radha felt as if a lamp of hope had been lit inside her. The next morning, as the sun rose behind the bamboo, she told herself, "Today will be a good day." That simple phrase eased her heart more than she could imagine. Every morning, Radha started the day with a smile, even when the kitchen held only thin porridge for the children. She no longer drowned in worry, but found strength to clean the house, tend the small vegetable patch, and work tirelessly in the fields, planting each seed with faith in a bountiful harvest. When weary, she reminded herself, "Think of the good, and all will be well." With that thought, despair no longer controlled her. She spent more time with her children, telling them cheerful stories, teaching them songs to ease their hunger. The children's eyes began to shine again, for they could feel their mother's love and faith. Though her husband had not returned, Radha held on to hope. Each night, lighting the oil lamp, she prayed that he would soon find work and send word home. Optimism gave her strength. The once fragile woman had become a strong pillar for her children. As days passed, the villagers noticed Radha's transformation. Her eyes, her smile, and her courage all radiated positive energy. And it had all begun from something simple, choosing good thoughts to start each day. Weeks later, at dawn, Radha received a letter from the city. Her hands trembled as she opened it, her heart pounding wildly. Inside were her husband's words. He had found steady work and was sending money home. Just reading that, her eyes blurred with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. She clutched the letter to her chest, feeling the heavy burden melt away. The faith she had nurtured had finally been rewarded. The months of hunger, thin meals, and sleepless nights now felt lighter, for she knew she had been right to choose hope over despair. At once, she ran to the old woman's house, her eyes shining. "Grandmother, my husband has found work. He's sending money home to us." Radha said, overwhelmed. The old woman smiled gently, nodding as if she had known it all along. You see, when we nurture positive thoughts, we open ourselves to good things. Faith carried you through hardship and brought happiness back. From that moment, Radha cherished the lesson even more. She understood that life would still bring challenges, but with optimism, she would always have strength to overcome. Watching her children beam at the news from their father, she felt deeply that a change in mindset not only brought happiness to herself, but also spread warmth to her loved ones. Positive thinking had become the lantern guiding her path, assuring her that no matter the storm, happiness would smile upon those who keep faith alive. After Radha's story, news of her miraculous change spread across the village. People, long burdened by failed harvests, illness, and poverty, grew curious and came to the old woman for advice. They wanted to know what had helped Radha transform from a weary, sorrowful woman into someone strong and happy. Beneath the old banyan, the woman still sat, her gentle smile always present. When villagers arrived, she promised no miracles nor magical solutions. Instead, she softly reminded them, when you think of good things, your heart feels lighter. When you are grateful for what you have, life feels less heavy. And when you hold on to faith, goodness will gradually appear. Her simple words sank deep into every heart. A farmer, instead of despairing over drought, thought of planting more vegetables to feed his family. A mother, instead of fearing her child's illness, focused on recovery and cared with love. A carpenter, instead of grieving over fewer customers, used the time to refine his craft for future opportunities. Day by day, the village began to change. Laughter was heard more often, the atmosphere